Right. Right, Joel, I don't know if you want to kick off.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, thank you for joining the webinar this morning. So we'll be talking everything making tax digital for income tax, or MTD as we're going to refer to it today. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Sean Fuller, so one of the directors here at Coombs. I'm also head of business services. So kind of leading the project here in terms of making tax digital and how we can help you as clients to make sure you're compliant and prepared for this going forward. We're also running this webinar alongside Xero today. So you'll see that Chris is here joining us from Xero. So we've been partnered with Xero for a number of years. They are our software of choice. And their software will be able to help you with MTD for income tax. And I will hand over to Chris a little bit later to go through the software with you. But I think first off, it's just a case of going through what MTD actually is and how it might impact you going forward. I mean, it is one of the biggest changes HMRC has made for quite a long time. So it is something that we need to start planning for now. It is coming into place from April 2026 for a lot of people. So the sooner we start getting you on some sort of software and getting you trained up in these kind of things, then the easier it will be for when you actually do need to go through and use the software. So first off, what is MTD? So HMRC are moving away from the annual paperwork. So you might be used to submitting a self-assessment tax return once a year. However, you're going to have to move to a real-time digital reporting. So what does that actually mean? It means that you have to submit quarterly updates to HMRC, and then you will also have to do a final declaration as well. So the final declaration is very similar to the self-assessment tax return that you do at the moment. And that will bring in any other income that you've got. So if you've got salaries, dividends, interest, anything like that, that will bring that in. But the quarterly updates will be your self-assessment income and your rental income. And essentially, it's just making sure that you're keeping all your records in a digital format, and that includes all your income and all your expenditure. You might be thinking, why are HMRC doing this? Is it just an extra admin burden? And kind of yes, but essentially they want to be able to track your income levels throughout the year so that they can forecast their own tax income at the end of the year. So it's moving to more real-time reporting for them to be able to do that. In terms of the payments that you make to HMRC, that will remain exactly the same. So you'll still be doing your twice a year, January and July payments, and so there'll be no cash flow impact in terms of MTD or anything like that. So in terms of who is actually effective, it's any sole trader or landlord with income over 50,000 from April 2026. And when we talk about income, we're talking about your turnover. So not including any expenditure, not profit, it is pure turnover. And then from April 2027, it will be any sole trader or landlord with income over 30,000. And then there is talks about that decreasing to 20,000 from April 2028. I don't think that has been confirmed yet. So eventually, I think they're going to move to a point where everyone is impacted by this and everyone is doing the quarterly filings, but they've just not confirmed that yet. Probably also worth noting as well, if you do have combined sole trader income and rental income of over 50,000, then you are also in the scope of MTD. So for example, if you're a sole trader and you've got income of 40,000, but then you've got rental income of 15,000, you'll be over the 50,000. So you'll be in from April 2026. So something to watch out for. So what does that actually mean for you? So as mentioned, you've got to do the digital update every 3 months, which essentially is a summary of your income and expenditure. And it's got to go into specific categories as prescribed by HMRC. And in terms of how you're going to do that, you can use cloud-based software, such as Xero would be our recommendation. But it does mean that you can't rely on all your paper records, all your spreadsheets, because all your information does have to be digital, it has to be accurate, and it has to be kept up to date. So just doing the spreadsheets won't be compliant with HMRC's regulations. So probably a shift in mentality and having to use some cloud software like Xero. There is some good news. So I expect you to do everything all on your own. And I think we've given everyone three options. So that would be we can set you up on the software, we can provide you with all the training on software, and hopefully you get to the point where you are fully comfortable and you'll be able to do all of the quarterly submissions and all of the bookkeeping yourselves. And then where we would then get involved is in that final submission, so that we can bring in all of your other forms of income. And there is also some tax adjustments that we would do at that stage. So similar to the way that we do your self-assessment tax return at the moment, we'd just do that final submission for you. Another option is, again, we can do all the training, set you up on the software, but then we actually review your quarterly submissions as well. And I think that'll just give you a bit of peace of mind that you are doing things right, and making sure that it doesn't get to the end of the year and that we're making a lot of changes. So quite a good option. But again, we can provide you with the training on that. Or thirdly, we can just take everything on ourselves. So we'll do all the bookkeeping, we'll do all the quarterly submissions, and take all the admin task off of your hands so you've got time to run your business essentially. So in terms of Xero, how does that make it actually easier for yourselves? So Xero allows you to keep all the records digitally. It allows you to pull in your bank transactions from your bank. So I know a lot of people have worries about security in terms of linking your bank to a software. I can assure you there's no issues with that. It is essentially just a digital download of your bank statement. So similar to you going onto your bank and printing off a bank statement, all it's doing is pulling those transactions through into the software. No one can make any bank transactions because of that link. It allows you to categorize all of your income expenditure in just a few clicks. So as I mentioned earlier, there's certain categories which HMRC have said you need to do this, this, and this. So that allows you to automatically pull those through. Makes it easy because you can snap receipts on the go. So if you're going out and you're spending some money, you can, rather than taking that receipt home, put it in a drawer, and then bringing it into us on a yearly basis, you can literally have an app on your phone, take a picture of it, and it'll automatically pull through into the software. I'm sure Chris can show you a little bit more about that later. It will allow you to generate the quarterly updates. So if you put all the information into the software, it will then automatically do the updates for you at the click of a button, and you'll be fully compliant with HMRC's rules. And then finally, the biggest bonus really is that you'll have real-time information yourself. So you will be able to see what your profit or loss is for the year, what your income is, and it will give you a bit of a forecast in terms of your tax for the year. It won't be 100% accurate because, as I said, there's some tax adjustments, and if you've got other forms of income, but it'll give you a bit of an idea of how much tax you should be saving, how much you're going to pay. And it'll help us from our side as well, because we'll have access to that information. So if we need to do any tax planning, or if there's anything that we can help you with in terms of reducing that tax, then we can do that on a live basis rather than waiting until the following year. So I think that was everything on MTD. So I'll hand over to Chris to show you a little bit more about Xero and what they can do to help as well.
Thank you very much, Sean. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Obviously, my name is Chris. I'm the partner consultant from Xero that works with Thomas Coombs. My role at Xero is to essentially help our partners, such as Sean at Thomas Coombs, with their usage of Xero to make sure that, well, not only that the software works for you guys and them themselves, but also to make sure that they're up to date with all the compliance and how Xero works to meet them compliant needs. For those that don't use Xero, have never heard of Xero before, it's a leading global platform to help small businesses and their advisors grow, essentially. So throughout the world, we've got over 3.95 million subscribers. As of January 24, 1.1 million of those were in the UK. We service over 180 countries with 1,000 connected apps. So things, anything from a card reader all the way through an EPOS system and an e-commerce system, there will be apps that can connect to Xero to make your day-to-day life a bit easier. And along with that, there are also 300 direct bank connections. So with anything from Lloyd's to building societies, essentially, we can connect through to Xero to pull your transactions data in. Throughout this presentation, there will be a little bit of interactiveness. So who recognizes these pieces of software on the screen right now? Obviously, 20 years ago, this technology was the norm. I imagine almost everyone used them at some point. But as HMRC are mandating you to, technology does move on. So today it's these things: smartphones, applications, and streaming sites. Even when I made this slide, maybe 3 months ago, this is already out of date, which just goes to show the power that technology is moving at in the modern day. Elon Musk, as much as he is not the world's favorite person in the world, he revealed that Google are making a smartphone that its interface is AI generated, so it will ask you what you want to see and show you it, making applications redundant in the future, which I'm not sure how much I enjoy that thought, but it's the way technology is moving and it's the way that innovation is moving, which can be scary, but obviously Thomas Coombs in Xero, he had to make the financial aspect of that a lot easier. Other ways or other reasons why businesses are moving away from more traditional processes. Obviously, manual record keeping does create a risk of security breaches, as Sean mentioned. Obviously, as soon as you drop your paperwork off, it leaves it open for anyone to gain access to it. Or if you lose paperwork, again, it gives anyone the opportunity to find it and access it. It also limits the accessibility to collaboration with your advisor. So if you are giving your information to Thomas Coombs, you no longer have access to it, meaning that you can no longer ask questions and they can no longer talk to you about it. Realistically, then, once a year meetings that you might have at the minute are not conducive to the way that your business wants to grow and the financial information that you require to make it grow. And then obviously, as we all enjoy a manual input and process, it does create a lack of data insights and it does create a massive time burden, not only on Thomas Coombs, but yourself as well. Having to store those paperworks, having to check and date order them, make sure everything's there, and obviously take it to the office to get checked. It's just not the way that conduces good business behavior in the sense of time management and data insights, which is where Xero obviously comes in. It's a world-class platform. The security and stability of the platform is encrypted through 256-bit encryption software, so it's completely impenetrable. The collaboration it allows you to have with your accountant in real time is obviously uncomparable. If you have a question about anything on any random day, Thomas Coombs will be able to see the exact same thing that you will see on your computer. So it's not a case of you need to ask them what to do and then tell them what you've got going on. They will have access to it as well. And then the automation and easy to use software can allow you to maintain a certain level of bookkeeping yourself, to give you them real-time business metrics. And obviously, this all comes hand in hand with us realizing that running a small business is very challenging. Obviously, working long hours, managing paperwork, and then pressures of maintaining cash flow can all mount up to then obviously a breaking point. Xero's obviously main standpoint is real-time financial information and actionable data. The actionable data part can be quite vague, but I look at it in the sense of as and when global crises hit, such as COVID-19 or what is soon to be the autumn budget on the 26th of November, you want to have that financial insight there and ready so that you can make quick decisions to make sure that your business can survive the laws in the economy. If you are waiting once a year for an income and expenditure and a tax figure, that puts you at a massive disadvantage in terms of being able to manage your cash flow, and ultimately have sight over whether your business is making money or not and where them big expenses are coming from, which is why Xero's there to obviously maintain a level of insight across the year rather than having that one big worrying moment. So Xero to run your business. The Xero workflow in terms of bookkeeping is very simple. Take a picture of a receipt on your phone, that then filters into Xero, you then reconcile to a payment. The way that'll work is through a software called Hubdoc. So Hubdoc is owned by Xero, and it's our what's called data capture software. So if you have a receipt, whether it be on email, on an online platform, or a paper receipt, you can put it into Hubdoc through 3 different methods, which I'll show you. And then you can essentially throw away that piece of paper. Hubdoc software is designed to store paperwork for the 7 years that HMRC regulate us to. And then Hubdoc will also read the paperwork, pull out the necessary information, and then put it into Xero ready to be reconciled against a payment. So the amount of manual data entry that you will need to put in is very little. And then Hubdocs first will capture the receipt. It will auto extract and auto store, which is the facility where the AI within Hubdoc will read the invoice and choose where it wants to land on the profit and loss. It will then auto publish Xero, and then your step is to do that one-click reconciliation against the payment as it leaves your bank account. And Hubdoc is included with all of the Xero subscriptions for free. Everything that you will have access to Hubdoc. So from that simple subscription, which is our bread and butter, making tax digital, all the way up to the ultimate plans, which is probably for more comprehensible businesses with multiple different facets and real-time cash flow insights. And then bill payments, obviously with the added benefit of Hubdoc, having invoices that are credit invoices so that you haven't paid there and then into the system allows you to build out what's called an accounts payable, which I'm sure some of you have heard of. From that screen, you will be able to go into Xero and pay your invoices directly from Xero with a live bank connection. So you can see we've got a lot of different invoices for a lot of different suppliers on that screen. The bank details are pre-populated in Xero, and we can make them payments without needing to log into the bank and without needing to make them payments one by one. We can just group them all together and pay it out of the bank account. And an end-to-end bill workflow. So the most time-consuming part of anyone's tax return is going through bills, checking them against bank statements, making sure they're business expenditures. With the added of Hubdoc payments and then obviously a bank feed, surely you can understand the amount of time that would save on an annual basis, considering that we're going to be moving to a quarterly basis soon. The amount of time it'll save not only Thomas Coombs but yourself in doing your own bookkeeping and managing your own paperwork. So let's have a look. Just by a show of hands, who has seen the Xero dashboard before? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So this is the Xero dashboard as it stands right now. You can see I've got a bank account set up. And if this was a real bank account, I would have a bank feed, but unfortunately, this isn't a real bank account. I've got a cash account running because I take and spend a lot of cash. I've got my sales invoices, and I've got my purchase invoices here as well. So the journey starts in Hubdoc. So if I click this top left-hand button and click on Hubdoc, it's going to open in a new screen where it will sign me in to my dashboard. And this is the Hubdoc dashboard that you guys will see. So there's 3 ways that we can upload a document. We can upload it via drag and drop facility from our computer. We can email the document in using our unique Hubdoc email address, or we can use the app on our phone just to take pictures of it. You might notice that a few things I've done to help out my accountant is I've added tags on the left-hand side of this screen. So I usually pay everything out of the business bank account, but I occasionally use cash. I occasionally use my Amex card, and I even use my wife's Amex card sometimes, just because I like to be that difficult. Setting up these tags and tagging these receipts to the individual tags will help Thomas Coombs not only reconcile your account, but make sure that every payment has a receipt applied to it. And as Sean will tell you, HMRC, due to making tax digital, are being a lot more strict about digitally stored documents. If a document is not stored in a digitally secure software that is approved by HMRC on their website, which Xero and Hubdoc are, if a compliance check was to happen, an investigation was to happen, HMRC would ask for access to your online database. They would gain access to Hubdoc and Xero, and then they would perform their own calculation. If a receipt that is in your return isn't in Hubdoc, they will just disallow it. They will not ask you to then enter it in. So they're being quite cutthroat in the sense of they're not given second chances. So being able to put everything in Hubdoc and tag it to the correct bank accounts will just assure Thomas Coombs that every bank transaction that leaves the account has a receipt that matches it, and they're not having to scramble and chase you and knock on your door and ask for things, as I'm sure they do now. But going forward, I'll upload a document so we can see what it looks like. So I'll upload this picture here. So what Hubdoc is doing is it's reading the invoice. It's reading this paper-based invoice, and it will put in the majority of the information up here. So it will choose a supplier, it will import an invoice reference and a date, and it will even extract a total amount in any VAT if VAT is applicable to your business. And then it will also configure it to Xero. So it's going to publish it as a purchase, and I can switch that to say draft to awaiting payment, select a contact and account code. We'll give that 5 minutes while it warms up and reads a bit of the invoice, because as I say, this isn't something that happens instantly just yet. We need to give the Hubdoc app time to learn, and as time goes on and the more that you use it, Hubdoc will get quicker and quicker. And we'll go back to Xero while Hubdoc's thinking about that. So we've put our receipts in Hubdoc, and they're filtering through into Xero, but you can see I've got 5 that I've done earlier. So if I click on these 5 just to check what they are, you can see I've got a Valda Energy, an annual bill for my music license, a Xero bill, a bill from myself for some reason, and then my insurance. So I can go back to the home page. I'm happy with all of them. And you can see I've also got some sales invoices. So I'll click on them sales invoices. I owe myself a lot of money, and I've also got a digger that I'm selling apparently. And they're invoices that are yet to be paid. If I need to create a new invoice, I can do so by clicking this button at the top here. Going through, selecting who the invoice is for. Hubdoc will tag that to the customer's account and contact, so that the email address and any sort of relative information like their address and phone number will be tagged on this invoice as well. Choose a date, and then choose a due date, so 30-day terms potentially. We can set up an online payment, which I'll show you how to do later, but essentially we can just put a description in for webinar fee. Let's say that's £1,000, and then I can choose an account code. Sales, sales extra, other revenue. There are thousands of codes, of which Thomas Coombs can set up for you. And then I can just approve and email that invoice from here. I'll skip that section. And then what that does is it's tagged the email address from the contact. It's put a little description of what the invoice is for, and then it's created a blurb to then be sent to the customer, which is editable. And if I email that, the customer will get that invoice. It'll mark it as sent, and as the customer opens their invoice, that will switch to viewed. So you will be able to see who has viewed the invoices and who has not, which gives you a leg up when chasing those doubtful debts. As I mentioned, I've got a lot of outstanding debt to myself at the minute, so I can go through and send a statement. Outstanding payments at the 31st of October. I can go through and I can email them statements to my customers. Enter the emails for the contacts that don't have them, and click send. And that will just send invoice. That will send all of the invoices in a statement format to be paid by the customer there and then. So I've created a sales invoice. I have sales invoices and purchases in the ledger already. I can now go and check these bank transactions to see what I've paid and what has been paid. So if I go under here, these transactions are filtered through from your bank account on a daily basis. So every day, yesterday's transactions will populate. So as I can see, I've got Bill's Bargains. They've paid their invoice, which is great. I've got an NCC Parking. That has no invoice yet, so I'll need to go and find that and put it into Hubdoc. The same as these Apple, Harvest, and Amazon invoices. I can see Harvey's paid his invoice. That's great. I'll mark that as paid. And I can see Valder Energy, that payment has left the bank account. So I can mark that as paid as well. And PC Target Insurance, I've paid that, which is great. There are some payments that do not have invoices, which is perfectly fine. So HMRC is a great example of a payment that doesn't have an invoice. So what we can do here is we can put in the Who tab HMRC, and we can send this to the nominal that is relating to the tax that we're paying. Hopefully your tax bills aren't as big as mine, but I can just reconcile that off there as well. What I've got left, obviously you can see PPLPRS, that's my music license. There is a bill for that, but it's an annual bill, so I need to split that invoice. So I can go find and match PPLPRS, and if I click that split button, it's going to say we're going to allocate £102 to this payment here, and that will leave £1,337 remaining on the invoice. So every month, as that payment leaves the bank account, I can do that until that bill is completely paid off. But from this stage, we can see we've got 7 payments that have no invoices relating to them. That's my opportunity to then go back, check Hubdoc, check what paperwork I still have, and make sure that those invoices are then inputted to be reconciled in the same way. What we can do from the home page as well is we can go through and check out our reports. So in the reporting section of Xero, there are various different reports. The bulk of them will be the profit and loss and balance sheet. So as and when we create invoices, put bills in, and reconcile payments, these reports are automatically populating. So if I open the P&L, there, what I can see is it's went to this financial year, and we can see we've got a sales value, a cost of sales value, and then an administrative cost value, and then an overall profit. We've also got gains and losses on assets sold, if any of you have them. But we can toggle this to say, right, I want to have a look at last month, and I want to compare it with the last 4 months. So we can see varying different amounts of sales, expenses, big sale of an asset, and this would be your opportunity to go through and check month on month, is it getting better or worse? What expenses have we got that are getting bigger? What expenses have we got getting smaller? And ultimately, are there any expenses on this list that we can get rid of and that we don't require anymore? The profit and loss on Xero is live update. So if I went and reconciled those payments, I wouldn't have to do anything to this report. It would automatically update. And if I go to the balance sheet next, you will be able to see the financial health of your business. So this is a snapshot of your health, essentially. A total amount of assets, a total amount of liabilities, and then an ultimate capital and reserves, which is essentially what your business is worth. Again, month on month, we can check, is that number increasing or decreasing? And then we can investigate why. And then Thomas Coombs will be right on hand to help you understand why either it's going down or why it's going up, and what you can do to better the situation. If we jump back into Hubdoc, we can see that Hubdoc has now read the invoice and it's inputted that information for us. I'll just check that matches. So Crown Plaza, yeah. Invoice reference matches the reservation number. The total amount matches that and then it's extracted the VAT for me as well. If you are not VAT registered, we can click a setting in Hubdoc through the settings and integration, and we can untick this publish tax box, which will basically mean everything is populated with no VAT on it. So what Hubdoc wants me to do now is configure it to Xero. So every supplier needs to be configured once, and then we can auto sync it and save the configuration forward so that we only need to do it once for this person. So I can select purchase, awaiting payment, select a supplier, which would be the Crown Plaza. Add that supplier to Xero. There we are. And then choose an account code. So for this invoice, it might be travel, national. And then a description, I can say hotel stay. And click publish. So now that I've set the configuration for the Crown Plaza within Xero, every receipt that Hubdoc reads that has a supplier of the Crown Plaza will automatically assign that rule going forward. So you only need to do that once, essentially. But if I go back to the home page and then go to bills, I can see that that payment or that invoice is populated in the waiting payment section, and even the PDF's been attached so that we can do a further review later on it. And then that is just waiting for us to reconcile it against a payment within the bank account there. That is the Xero bookkeeping workflow from data in to data out. Do we have any questions before I go forward? I can unmute people to ask questions, or you can put in the chat box if you do have anything to say. I'll just wait for anyone to raise their hand if they do. These are an easy crowd. Perfect. So that's how you would go through and do your reconciliation. As I said, we can access the profit and loss and balance sheet from the report section. And there are various other reports that you can see in Xero, which Thomas Coombs will be happy to show you. The amount of data that we can get out of the software is immense. Essentially, where that takes us to next is making tax digital. So back into Xero, you would have noticed I have this little tax tab. This tax tab has VAT returns, partnership tax returns, CIS contractors, if that applies to you. And come April 2026, it will have MTD for income tax. And where that'll take us is here. So this is our making tax digital beta for anyone that's on the HMRC pilot. And what this is basically an overview of our quarterly return. So Thomas Coombs will link your Xero account with your tax account with HMRC, which will then populate these quarterly obligations. And you can see that quarter one is due now. And we can view that through this little button here. So the profit and loss in Xero, as you saw, had sales, cost of sales, administrative expenses, and so forth. Those nominal codes, as we call them, will tag themselves to these tax categories automatically. And this is a HMRC approved document, and it cannot be changed, unfortunately. So as and when you are reconciling your payments to the profit and loss, HMRC is tagging them to the tax categories. And if we click in business entertainment costs, we can see the report code for business entertainment costs is linking to that nominal code there. So this is what is being submitted to HMRC on a quarterly basis. It is purely for benchmarking and statistics tools. They will not be getting a transaction report. It will just be a plain old profit and loss. And as long as you are happy with the profit and loss as it stands, we can then go and send that to HMRC. And it will be automatically filed through Xero. And then, as Sean mentioned, this tax calculation box will update. But I must stress that it is only as good as the data that you are providing the software. If you don't put everything you have in, this tax calculation will not be a full representation of what is due to HMRC. But in a sense, going back to the quarterly submission, the benchmarking tools that HMRC are using, they're using a new AI called AI Connect, which is specific to HMRC to read these quarterly submissions and benchmark industries. So if I was Cook Plumbing, and as it said, £13,500 was my income for last quarter, and then I spent £4,500 on materials, it would benchmark my industry as I spend 30% of my turnover on materials. That benchmark would follow me all the way through the year until final declaration, at which point, if I submit my final tax return and I fall outside of those benchmarks, it will leave me at a higher risk of compliance check. So the days of getting everything ready at the year end and submitting the tax return as it should be are gone. These quarterly filings need to be as accurate as you can possibly make them. If the paperwork is stored in Hubdoc and filed through Xero, there should be no issue with completing a compliance check because all the data will be there. But the last thing that we'll want is an unnecessary call from HMRC because you fall outside of your own benchmarks, which is why the quarterly submissions are an important part of this new process. And we can't fudge the numbers, unfortunately. We need to have that source transaction data to point back at. Enough of the doom and gloom. That is the MTD functionality. So we've shown Xero bookkeeping from data in and data out and the MTD quarterly filings. Those quarterly filings, the same process will repeat itself quarter on quarter, and Thomas Coombs will then take that data to complete your final declaration. Back to the good parts about Xero. So Xero payments. So as we said, on the sales invoices within Xero, we saw that add online payments tab. What that means is that we can add either a payment service or a direct debit service, and we partner with Stripe and Go Cardless. So if you are sending invoices to customers expecting to get paid through bank transfer, but perhaps your customers don't always pay you on time, you can add a payment service such as Stripe or Go Cardless, which will then prompt the customer to make a card payment as and when they receive the invoice, or set up a direct debit so that recurring payments can be collected. Stripe, if you went to Stripe Direct and opened a Stripe account on their dashboard, you would be charged a higher fee than you would doing it through the Xero API. Because Xero is such a massive partner of Stripe, we're able to get reduced fees from these big payment providers that we are more than happy to pass on to our customers. So you can now accept credit, debit card payments as well as Apple Pay and Google Pay directly from your invoices when it hits the person's inbox. And then we're also able to offer fast payouts for up to 2 days to get your money in. And then Go Cardless works in the same way, that when they get their invoice into their inbox on their email address, they can set up a direct debit and that recurring payment can be collected automatically. So you won't need to action the direct debit every month, raise the invoice and it'll be collected. And we're also introducing tap to pay. So your phone through the Xero app and the connection with Stripe can now become a card reader. So if you are a joiner or a plumber on the job at a customer's and you want to take payment there and then, rather than raising an invoice, getting them to make a payment online, you can turn your phone into a card reader and collect payments through either contactless payment with their card or Apple Pay, which that says Android on there, and I'm more than confident that it's available on Apple phones now as well. Even if you don't think this will be a long-standing thing for you, it's well worth having it set up on your invoices as an option, just for when you do have that difficult customer who says, I'll pay you next week, and you don't quite trust them. And then the more ways to pay in Xero. So obviously we've got digital wallets set up, which is tap to pay and Stripe and things like that. You can pay via debit card and credit card through the online invoice. You can pay via direct bank transfer and instant bank transfer through Go Cardless now. And then Xero is also investigating a buy now and pay later option, which again will be filled out through on Stripe. And then, as I said, we've got that tap to pay as well. And the best part about everything I've just showed you, it can all be done within the Xero mobile app. So everything from creating invoices, Hubdoc, approving bills, reconciling payments, making payments direct through the bank connection, collecting invoices, and even checking your management accounts can all be done through the Xero app. So you won't necessarily have to sit down at your computer like I do every night to sort out your finances. And obviously the integration with Xero, as I mentioned at the start, we have over 1,000 app partners, Stripe and GoCardless being 2 of them. We also link with various different stock management softwares, EPOS systems, till systems, e-commerce systems, cash flow systems, which is quite keen to see that we now have acquired Sift, the cash flow and benchmarking tool, which again is available for free within certain levels of the Xero subscription set. If you have a business that uses an online platform, it was very unlikely that it doesn't have some sort of API connection with Xero, and it's well worth investigating. Just if not an effort to get your data to where Thomas Coombs needs it, but to improve your day-to-day financial overview of your business. And coming to Xero subscriptions in bulk is now Jax, which is Xero's AI-powered business companion. Essentially, what Jax is able to do is you can ask it to raise invoices, send statements, send reminders, and it will also give you an overview of customer details. So if you need to contact a customer and you know their details are in Xero, you can ask Jax to give you the contact information. And it will also prompt you to check your management accounts, check overdue invoices, and as the one on the screen shows, it's mentioned that EcoWare has paid their last 3 invoices late, and it's asking, do you want to apply a late fee? Jax is in its development phase at the minute, so it is very good as it stands. Over the next 3 months, we expect it to get better, with better prompts being added every day, and obviously better view over the subscription base as it stands. So every day you could ask it something new, and it potentially will give a better answer. And obviously this goes through into the Xero suite. So everything that Xero offers can include invoices and bills. If you're a project-based business, we can manage projects for you. Short-term cash flow and long-term cash flow analytics plus through the power of Sift. Business snapshots through Sift as well. Obviously Hubdoc, expenses, and payroll, and it all ties into that Xero Blue organization. So you can manage all of these different elements of your business through that one Blue platform. Which, not to sound biased, is the way that I would want to do it. And we're finished around 10 minutes early on this demo, so I did leave 10 minutes for questions for those that have it. And like I say, I can't unmute people if they want to talk or ask questions, or if you want to put them in the chat, that's perfectly fine. But we'll give people 5 or 10 minutes to populate their questions, but I'll pass back to Sean for a bit of a sign off. Just to tell you what Thomas Coombs has planned for the next 3 months before NTD comes into play.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I appreciate there's probably quite a lot of information there, especially if you've never seen Xero as a software before, and you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed. But it is obviously something that we can support you with, as mentioned before. So even if you don't feel comfortable doing the full process from start to finish, so whether it's the Xero part, I think there is still things that you can be doing in terms of things like Hubdoc. So it might be a case that you upload all of the invoices onto Hubdoc, and then we can do the rest of the bookkeeping process from there. And then gradually over time, it might be a case that you want to start taking on a little bit more yourselves, and learning a little bit more about Xero. So obviously we can provide any training. You might be the other way and think that Xero is perfect, and you want to start just doing this straight away. And again, I don't think that's an issue. We can do that training over the next few months and make sure you're fully set up for April. I think from feedback we've had from other clients in the past is just that the easiest thing to do is actually just start using the software. That's the easiest way that you can learn how to use it and get better at it. And once you start using it, it is quite intuitive, and you can you do pick it up quite quickly. So, and anything that you do wrong, it can be corrected. So don't worry about putting something into the wrong category or doing something wrong in the software. Basically, anything that you do in there can be reversed. So don't worry too much about that. But I think from our point of view, we'd like clients to be starting using this as soon as possible. And at least then you've got 3 months before you're actually mandated to actually start doing this. So you can have a practice on this year's data. And then when it gets to April, we're there ready to start and make sure everything's right going forward. But we will be in touch over, I'd say, probably the next week with everyone on the webinar just to get a bit of feedback and if anybody, I guess, discuss what we're going to be doing going forward and come up with a plan for the next few months before April to make sure that as soon as we get to April, we're on the software and we're ready to go. Don't know if there was any questions.
I don't think so. I must have done a good job, Sean.
Yeah, sounds good.
Anyway, like I say, if anyone does have any questions, Thomas Coombs do have Xero specialists in their office, so they will be able to answer 99% of the questions that you have. For the 1% that they don't have the answer to, they've got the full support and backing of Xero and their consultant team, as well as their account managers, to be able to service not only Thomas Coombs, but the clients that they have on the software as well. So there's no drop off of support after this webinar. The online platform to ask Xero support questions yourself is there, but obviously Thomas Coombs is there as well. So the support function is there. You just need to utilize it to the best that you possibly can. Perfect. Right. Well, why don't we give some of your clients a little bit of time back and close it off there?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers.